broadcaster, Stephen A. Smith, who's on ESPN. I think he's like, some people joke here, they'll say like he's on air like 17 hours a day. And so there was a poll by Donald Trump's former pollster. Pollster is a guy who like checks for you, like, how many people might vote for you if you run for president. So they're running focus groups for you.
Yeah.
In South Africa, political parties do the same, and then they will present those results to you like it was objective, but it's just them trying to see like how are they doing and what are their opponents, how popular are their opponents. So in any case, this guy used to work for Donald Trump, John McLaughlin, and he ran this survey of Democratic presidential candidates for 2028. He gave Kamala Harris 33%, and then there's two other professional politicians. One is Tim Walz, who was her running mate for vice president, and the other guy is Josh Shapiro, who's the governor of Pennsylvania, who was the other candidate to become her vice president, but he didn't make it. And then Stephen A. Smith got 2%. Now, I don't want to get into all of it about Stephen A. Smith, because he's really a Republican. Like if you Google,
controversial,
he's actually quite reactionary. Like he would say things like January 6th was an inside job, that he has said that he supports Donald Trump. He's very conservative about the gender relations between men and women. Like he's just like he says a lot of like dumb things. But you were going to say something else before I quickly want to say.
Yeah. So I'm going to interject there, and I'm going to ask you this question or make the statement. I do think, however, if you earn a certain salary or your net worth is of a certain amount, you will lean to the right, to the Republicans, because you get tax cuts. So some of these people initially come from a liberal background, but they move into, I don't know if the word is correct, conservatism, because it makes sense to them that this is where I'm going to have my bread butter. This is where my taxes are going to be cut. It's, I'm gonna get more wealth from being connected to this. So they don't make the decision on. Somebody said today that you're a coward if you vote for a party for what it does for you, and you don't care what that party does for others. So you're not making a collective decision necessarily. You're making a decision that only counts for you. But when it affects you, then you want to say the party that you voted for. Like a lot of Trump supporters now that feel hard done by the decisions that they made, especially women that voted against DEI, and now they find out that they are a part of DEI, whether you're a white woman or not. Now you tend to feel like, oh shit, I didn't think this through. But my initial point is just like, if you earn a certain amount of money and your network is very high, you're definitely going to vote for Donald Trump,
like
because you know
50 Cent. 50 Cent. I mean, I know he said he didn't want to take.
Snoop Dogg went over. Who's the Nelly went to go do a show for him. They now
Snoop Dogg went to.
And the about Snoop, Sean, Snoop made videos late last year that said, I want to see the Uncle Tom that's going to move over to Donald Trump. If you, but how quickly do you change your? That's the other thing about American politics.
But let me get to your. I just want to quickly respond to your point. Yeah. Like you saying, what in America often when people get money, they become more Republican, because it's the party of limited taxes, limited government. We see now they're trying to break up the U.S. government at the national level.
Oh, at the federal level.
So, and I was just going to say, like 50 Cent, for example, he left New York, moved to Houston, because New York has higher taxes, and Houston, Texas, Republican state, and 50 Cent, people like 50 Cent, you mentioned like Nelly, who goes to perform at Trump's some crypto thing along with Snoop. I mean, there's a couple of other rappers who's escaping me my mind, who've all sort of made it clear that they would vote for Trump because Trump is more interested in paying taxes. But I want to say one other quick thing. A lot of kind of Black entertainers, sports figures that we sort of the people who circulate in the world we read about, our friends talk about, people that they admire. They also like Trump, Black men mostly, not just because of the taxes often, but also because this kind of very kind of male dominated, masculine politics. Like Trump is a man's man. Yeah. And there's a lot of like in black culture often there's also this like Asian white culture, but there's this kind of real emphasis on like, men have lost their place. Like America, I don't know what the debate is like in South Africa, but yeah, it's a lot of like men have lost their place, men have been set back. Men are not men anymore. And Trump will bring that back. So there's a lot of, if you spend a lot of time on kind of hip hop news sources, podcasts like that, that's how they sounded and some of them decided not to vote for him in the end. But I think I'm not surprised if like Stephen A. Smith is a Republican.
But do you think that's what gave rise to the Tates of this world when they came out with this like misogynistic way of looking at things and treating women like objects, and we are man, come to my school, I will teach you how to do kickboxing. You pay me something like $100,000. I'll make a man out of you. I'll show you how to hit on a girl. Like all this crazy things.
I think that's more. I think what that is that's more kind of like the sort of when social media became sort of ubiquitous and people look for the mainstream press was discredited. Like so, the media that people normally look to for facts was discredited by the right, and people started to question whether that's a good news source. No, I'm going to go find my own source. And so in that context, people gravitated towards these kind of like you say, what's his name, Tate, Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate, yeah.
And there was like a stack of these dudes. Like there's a ton of them running around. They are on Twitch. They're gamers, and they just say like the thing that comes into their head. They actually are proud to tell you that they don't read because they claim that books
alpha male.
It's a whole alpha male thing. But I just want to. So the thing about Stephen A. Smith, and there's a question I want to ask you in a minute is, he's definitely a Republican. It's also about attention because this is about publicity. Like if people talk about Stephen A. Smith, that's great for him. So whether or not he really wants to run for president, that's beside the point. Although he's like, helping on the speculation a little bit. But it did make me think about sports people who've run for office, like or sports personality or sports related people. And here in the US, because I want to ask about South Africa. Gerald Ford, who played quarterback at Michigan, and that was part of his rep. He eventually becomes the president of the US in the mid-70s. There's another guy called Jack Kemp, who played for the Buffalo Bills, like NFL. He became a cabinet member for George H.W. Bush, the father of George Bush. Bill Bradley became a presidential candidate in 2000. Ronald Reagan pretended to be a sports guy. He played him in movies. And then among black people, you have like Herschel Walker, that guy from Georgia, who lots of people think he was punch drunk or something. Kevin Johnson, who was a mayor, he was an NBA, three-time All-Stars. Yeah. Exactly. So those guys, Tuberville that you mentioned, Tom mentioned Tuberville the other day. He was a coach from Alabama or Arkansas, something quite conservative. He says the most confusing things ever. And so, do we know? I was thinking actually, like, do we know in South Africa? There's two questions. One is, do we know in South Africa of people that have actually run for office? And then the question I think is more interesting. So you don't have to spend too much time on that if you don't want to. Is there somebody in South Africa from like the sports world now that you could think as someone who could run for office? Like, is that a thing in South Africa that you look and you go like, oh,
it's absolutely not a thing. Sorry. The only person that I could like reference to is Davi. What's his name? Davi de Villiers was, I think, was a scrummer in apartheid. Guess what his real name is? David Jacobus de Villiers. So if you look at you'll be David Jacobs. David Jacobus. Jacobus. Okay, my good Afrikaans. So he was ambassador for South Africa to the United Kingdom. So that was his claim to fame. To your second question, and to the first one, I don't think there's a lot of people. It's only, I can only reference him. Unfortunately, the closest I can get is maybe Peter de Villiers, that's now at the MK party. We spoke about him recently. But I think in the future, we spoke about this before. I think the perfect person, whether or not I know what his leanings are in politics, whether it's to the side of the DA or ANC, or he wants to start his own party, is probably Siya Kolisi. Because when people speak about him, even around the world, he's a man of the people. So we've got other examples like that. I think is it Imran Khan that became the president in Pakistan, and then you've also got, I think, George Weah in Liberia. So you've got this overlap from sports to politics, but it's not very prevalent in South Africa per se. So I think there's obviously opportunity for people now coming up because of social media. You see them a lot. You see what they do in the community. So for them to take that step up would obviously be amazing, and people would vote for them. So because remember, your the 47th and the 49th president, if I'm no, the 45th and the 47th president is Donald Trump, who was an actor on TV telling people you are fired, became a president not because of his credentials, not because he's a what do you call the people that's been in government for like a long period,
like a bureaucrat or
yeah, he's not a bureaucrat. He's nothing like that. He was fresh. He said things without. He used to make jokes of people and say, "Your wife is ugly. Don't talk to me. You won't win against me." And by the way, your father was a assassin. He killed I don't know who. Like he used to make up these things, and it was entertainment for people. You understand, and that's how he won the presidency. So I don't see why a sports personality couldn't cross over. But for now, I think it's probably like. Siya Kolisi, yeah, he would probably be the main one if I could think of someone that would be able to transcend.
I mean, just to abstract, because we can talk about many other people, and there's people here that are sort of similar to Kolisi, like, although some better politics, Colin Kaepernick, in terms of potential.
Yeah,
LeBron James, I think he's a bit more like Sia, where it's unclear sometimes to figure out what his politics are. He's very careful, and I know he's on, say, for example, Palestine. He's mourned the Israeli death, but he's never said anything about Palestinians. Maybe somebody like Megan Rapinoe, the gay football player,
yeah,
sort of purple hair,
yeah.
fought for equal pay for sports people. Then maybe Naomi Osaka, the tennis player who identified with Black Lives Matter and talks a lot about mental health. But I want to say this:
Big on mental health, yeah.
when you said you have Donald Trump, who's an actor, who plays an actor on TV, and then says, "I'm going to do X, Y, Z," I think that's where, if you think about somebody like a Siya Kolisi, as you rightly say, he's trying to give over an impression almost like a blank slate.
A diplomat.
Yeah, you can't really figure out what he does today. He's hanging out with Drikas, the racist. He walks Drikas out at a. Hold on, let me finish. Walks Drikas out at a UFC fight one time. Another time after the World Cup final in 2023 on the field, he says, what we did is incredible for a third world country. And when I watched that, I was like, this guy recognizes that we are a country of the global south. So he's this kind of guy who's like, he's a lot of everything to everybody. So it's very difficult to sort of pin him down. And so Siya Kolisi, you're right. But here's why I think somebody like Siya Kolisi could become interesting in South African politics, for better or worse or whatever. As you said, we are just observing this.
Yeah.
Is those characters, when they come into politics, they present themselves as like, I'm coming from outside of politics. I'm not part of this dirtiness of politics.
Craziness, fraud, whatever it is.
Trump said, I'm going to drain the swamp. I'm not a professional. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not these guys who come through law school and they become public representative. Sorry, I'm coming from somewhere else. Berlusconi did this in Italy. I built like a football club, AC Milan.
About the country.
We won the European Champions League. We won the World Club. I don't think it was called World Club Cup, but it was called that. They won that. So it's like, my success is I know how to run something and make it and win. See, I can say I won the World Cup as captain of South Africa, back to front, back to back.
Yeah.
I'm the first black man to do it, and he's the first sort of like black rugby player where there are many others before him with immense talents, Brian Habana, Chester Williams, etc. But they never had that appeal. When they played, they was still white, so still was divisive about them. They weren't like, are they there on their own merit? With Siya, whites used to say that, but they can't say
can I
that.
ask a question, sir? I just want to make a statement, sir. So with Siya, you're quite right. With Siya, you can put him in the same mold as a John Smith. I'm saying nothing about their talent. They're talented players in their own right. But even their teammates would confess that they weren't the best hooker at the time in the country, or John Smith,
Best
but he was a good
flanker.
leader. He was a great leader. He knew what to say. He knew how to rile people up. He knew how to get more out of the players in the last 5 minutes. Same with Siya. He's not considered the best flank in South Africa even. But for the role that he plays, and is now dual for the country, for the team, and the fact that he could win 2 World Cups, that was amazing for me. So I say big ups to the guy. If he wants to run, I'll probably vote for him if it becomes clear which way he's leaning.